my name's Carlene, and a lot of you were following a post of mine that I had on the Canadian Knit Facebook fabric group, as you were all wondering and curious how I make my mock-up images, because I've had multiple people ask me over the couple months that I've been actually doing them. So I thought maybe it would be a good idea to show some free resources and how you can make some yourself as well. So I've never made a tutorial before, so bear with me. I've been doing digital art probably since I was, I'm going to say probably 12 years old, maybe 13. I started using a mouse and then I evolved to something a little bit more, which I'm going to show you a couple different programs too and things that you can use just so that we're all, I'm kind of introducing something new to you guys, so I want to make it as easy as I can, so I'm going to try and not go into too much detail with this in regards to what you can and can't use, but I want to show you some things that I use personally that I really like, and then I'm going to show you the free resources that we're going to use today that I've used in the past before my art has evolved. We're not going to be making a mock-up of the Jessie hoodie today, since that's going to be something that I don't know if you guys would want later on, a different tutorial, but we're going to do something a lot more simple, and it will be the same type of concept, but just on a different type of, I guess, clothing wear, just because the Jessie has quite a few, intricate lines and stuff, just for now, since you guys are just starting out, because I'm assuming everyone watching this has no exposure to digital art programs at all. So that's what I'm going to expect at this point, and we're going to move forward and just kind of work our way through. So these are the original mock-ups that I had, and I posted on my own sewing page as well that I sell locally, and it's just different fabrics that I'm going to try and attempt to make into the Jessie hoodie, since I really do like the Jessie hoodie, and of course I love my art gallery fabrics and custom knits. That would have been the Fabric Snobs Christmas round last year. That's my next project actually, and I'm getting this bear custom printed out so that I can pair it with my buffalo plaid. So basically these are all adult hoodies, but you can do it the same for children's or your own or whatever. So that's kind of that. So I'm going to get rid of this just so we don't have too many pages opened. And I'm going to go here and show you first kind of what I use. I use a Intuisis Wacom tablet to draw. You don't need this. If you're going to be following this tutorial, I would prefer that you would probably use a mouse starting out, but I'm just showing you what I use, as it's so much easier. It's almost like you pick up the pen and you can draw right on the tablet, and it draws right on the screen magically. I can't even explain it. And it also has a pen pressure, and it helps that your lines aren't always just one uniform thickness. But anyways, you don't need one of these to draw, but this is what I use when I'm doing my digital art, because I hopefully am hoping to make more seamless patterns that I can make and throw onto fabric and hopefully present at some time. I mean, I don't have a business or nothing, but I do appreciate when some other business owners come to me and they like my artwork, so then they ask if they can run it in their group. So I do appreciate that, as it's something that I've always wanted to do. So I use one of these to actually draw and do my art with, but for this tutorial you will only need a mouse, okay? Next, the program that I love to use personally is called Clip Studio Paint, okay? So this is an actual artist program, and it's actually on sale right now. I only have the first version of it, which is $25. I think that's what I paid the first time I paid for it too. It usually comes on sale every couple, I don't know, months or so. There's an upgraded version that's for $87 now, and this is Canadian funds as well. Actually, no, it's not. It's American, but when we go to buy it now, it shows you all the different price ranges, so it's actually 33 Canadian. But I find this program is a lot more professional. It's kind of like a Photoshop type program, but isn't nearly as much as Photoshop, and I love how I can do my art in it and make vector images. So vector images are important, especially for if you're wanting to do like images that you can size up and size down and not actually lose the quality of the image. So I really I don't have this Paint EX, I just have the Pro version and I love it. So that's there. You don't need to get this. I'm actually going to show you a free resource that I started out using back when I was in my teenage years and kind of have evolved from there. And it is called Fire Alpaca. So if you're following this tutorial today, you're actually going to need to download Fire Alpaca. I know it's kind of funny because it's a little llama, but he is great, and it comes obviously in Mac version and Windows. So that's what I like about this program, because I use a Mac. I love my MacBook, and a lot of programs aren't actually compatible with Mac, but I found this when I was in my teenage years, and I used it for multiple years before I actually evolved and bought that Clip Studio Pro program, which is down here. So you're going to have to download this program starting out, okay? So if you haven't done that now, just click on whichever one you use, Windows or Mac, and download it. Obviously it'll be in English because you'll be clicking here, but if you do want a different language, you can just click at the bottom and it'll take you to a new Fire Alpaca page, and that way you can then download it in your language. And we'll get into that in a second. So I'm going to get rid of some of these because we don't need them up here, as they're just going to confuse us all. Now, sorry, I have a frog in my throat. Now I want to discuss basically how layering works in these programs, because that's the benefit. The reason why you have to use a program that has layers in it is it just makes everything look more crisp and clean. That's why you cannot use a Paint program that comes either built in on the Mac or one that comes built in on Windows. Sorry, it comes with a Paint program as well, and they're just one layer, and it's impossible to do what I'm going to teach you if you do use those programs. So please download Fire Alpaca. It's free. It's not a gimmick. Just download it. It doesn't have any malware or viruses that follow it. I've used it for years, and they update it frequently with new things. So yeah, just download it. It's for free. Now I'm going to teach you about these layers, but I'm going to teach you in my Clip Studio Paint program, okay? So I'm going to jump back to Fire Alpaca in a minute, but I'm going to teach you what are layers in my program that I love. So, and I actually sketched up Kion. A lot of us have kids. I don't, but I am familiar with all the things that kids are loving now, since I do sew and sell for the child population usually. And a lot of them love the Lion Guard. So I sketched up or drew a quick image of Kion, just as an example, because I love the Lion King. And you can see over here, this is going to be the same concept in Fire Alpaca, but you can see that there is different layers here, okay? I stole his colors from this image just to get his coloring proper, so I can delete that. But you can see that everything is on its own little layer. So we have the line art, you have his little freckles, you have his actual color and the background, okay? So everything is actually separated. Same with his eyes, you know, bring him to life a little bit with a little eye shine. So what that means is if I click on this color layer, okay, and I'm just going to grab a crazy color just so we can all see it. If I scribble, okay, you can see that it is actually behind the line art, which works out well. So that means that you're not actually going to ever hurt your initial line art, okay? So layers are nice because you can color as if you're in a coloring book. Or, you know, you can take this little paint bucket tool and just, you know, color and do some pretty weird things. You have all the colors of the rainbow. You know, you can color them however you like. So that's what I love about a layering program. So Paint won't allow you to do this because a Paint program that's on like a Windows or a Mac is only a set one layer. So it would literally be like if I was trying to draw in Paint and you were trying to color, you would be trying to color and oh, So see how you kind of just go out of the lines? That's not what we're after today. So that's just an example of how you can use different layers. So I'll go over them again, just so we all know. So you have a background layer here. I just added a nice gradient background just to help them stand out a little bit. And you have his colors. See how they're not, when I push this eye icon, it makes them so that they appear like you can see them with the eye on, or you can't with them off. So you can see here that he is, you know, colors are there. Same with the line art. The line art's there and not. And it's hard to tell because I actually colored the line art to match him. So, and again, his eye shine. So, and that's kind of the ins and outs of layers and how you can use them to your benefits. So I'm going to get out of this for now, and we'll come back to this because I have something else I want to show you at the end. So open up your Fire Alpaca, and when you first open it, there's going to be a little ad that pops up. Just hit OK. That's just Fire Alpaca. They like to show you, you know, their promotions and kind of their new updates. So just click OK past that. And now we're going to go to File, New. And I usually, if I'm just making a mock-up, I'll just do a 3000 pixel by 2000 pixel. If you're not sure of what pixels are, you can go to like inches and centimeters, but I usually work in pixels. Genuinely, the larger the image, the clearer it's going to be if you shrink it down later. That's the ins and outs of digital art. And I'm going to click on a colored background because if you work on a transparent background, sometimes it's going to make it really hard on the eyes. So just click colored background for now and hit OK. So here we have our image. It's our blank paper. And just so we're all kind of getting familiar with Fire Alpaca, you have all your color wheels here. You have your brush preview. We're going to be using the pen only. I have a ton that obviously were loaded in under here from my previous drawing. And other than that, we're going to get familiar with this little tool here. So that's all we really need to know. You got your eraser, your pen, and this little tool here. You don't really need much else right now. You have a preview image that you can move your whole screen around. I find this helps because we are going to be zooming in and out, you know, just because that's how we're going to be working a little bit. It's easier, I find, when you're zoomed in versus when you're zoomed out. And your layers are over here. So this is like the same type of setup as if you're in my Clip Studio. So everything looks pretty similar, but the Fire Alpaca is just a little bit basic. But if you're just going to be using this for simple mock-ups, then it's a great program to use. So now we need to go find an image of something that we're going to basically trace out and make a quality mock-up that we can continue to use over and over again. So I actually find, and I know, you know, some people will view this as differently, but I like to find a nice item that's set up properly and looks nice as the presentation. So I found a good example is sometimes when you go to Etsy, you can find people that have their clothing laid out very nicely. We're going to do today some Maxaloons from Max and Mina. And I found this image, credit to Double O Clothing. She is actually from Canada, and she's actually from Vancouver Island, as I found out when I was going through her shop. She sets out all of her items very nicely, so that makes it very easy for us to use, and we're actually going to essentially trace this. So we're not really stealing her product to sell, because that's not what our goal is. Our goal is to make a good mock-up. So I apologize if this offends her or nothing. So we're gonna copy, and I do edit paste and it pops up here. See how little it is? I don't really like it being that little. So I'm going to go to, I haven't used this in a while, transform. So select transform. So that's what we're going to do. And you're basically going to grab the corner of it and enlarge it. Okay, now I like it that size compared to the rest, but see how it's sideways and I don't want that? See this little wheel here? I'm actually going to tilt it until it's pretty well centered. Move it over. And I'm only doing the back as well for an example of an image of this, so I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so that basically resized it to how I want it, and yeah, so now we're going to zoom in. And you're probably thinking, what is she doing? Oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. Just take it step by step. The next we're going to do is zoom in a little. You want to be able to see kind of what's going on here as you're essentially going to be tracing this. And then we're going to delete this image altogether. So we're going to click on this, make sure this layer is highlighted with the pants. And opacity is a really neat thing. It can take and it can decrease the transparency of an image. So we're going to do that, probably 50%, maybe even a little lighter, you know, whatever suits you. But I like to do it this way just because then you know for sure that you can see where you're tracing. But you're not going to get distracted by the real life pictures that are there. So now we're going to make a new layer. So go down to this little paper and click it. Now we have a new layer, which is great. That's what we want. And again, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. We're going to grab our pen tool and just probably, I'm guessing here, that one's a little thick for what I want. And still a little thick. I'm trying to find a nice consistency. That one, I think we'll go with 3. Yeah, 3 is a nice sized line for what we want, like a professional image. So after I figure out that, because I have my pen selected and selected that I want it at a 3, which is roughly the size that I want to use, that way it's not too thick of a line that's appearing out through. Now we're going to play with this little tool here. You click on this 3 little dots right here, and you're essentially going to click on these dots up here. Okay. So what this is going to do is it's going to make it so we can draw a continuous type of line without going outside of the lines, if that makes sense. So you're just kind of going to click on the image, click, and kind of drag it around. You can kind of fix it a little bit. We'll see here how. Might have to fix it a little bit. It's not going to be perfect. When you do the corners, you do need to go in just and do small little corners, because kind of see down here where I did too big of a corner and it kind of did a loop. You don't really want that, but I'll leave it for now. So this created a nice little line for us, which is great because after you double click it, it ends it. And you just got to go back to your pen tool and literally trace it out. And it stays in the line. So that's why you don't really need a tablet for this. I'm using my tablet because it's easier to, it's more natural for me, but you don't need a tablet, so just exit it out, and there's your first line. You can kind of see where I messed up a little bit here. I'm just going to take my eraser and go in and fix it and come back out, and basically if you click on this little circle you can see kind of the base of the Maxaloons. Okay, now one thing with digital art is that I see there's a little hole right here. I have to fix that because if I don't, if I go to copy an image in under there or paint it, it's going to leak out. So there's the top of our Maxaloons. Easy, right? So now we're going to do one leg probably down to the seam to make it look more natural. I like things to kind of look like it has folds. So click on this image again, the little 3 dots, and click on this. You'll see that it still appears here, but in order to get this old file away, just take and click this dot. It resets everything. So now we're going to just draw a new line and just go down, and I'm going to speed up the progress so that we're not here all day with me, just for learning purposes, and we'll go from there. So I will talk to you guys when this is all done. Okay, so zooming out, I have my MAC Saloons. They're pretty much cleaned up. I sometimes go back and clean up some of my lines because I don't realize that I take sharp turns when I'm using that little tool, but I really am. So I just go back and touch up some of my lines, but and I think there's another one over here. You can kind of see where they're choppy looking. So, and again, with a mouse, it's not that bad to go back and fix those lines. Just make sure everything's closed and uniform, and then you can actually take and click on this image here, the original pant image, and just throw it away. Put it in the garbage can. We don't need it no more. So there's our simple mock-up of the MAC Saloon. They look a little funny with the leg, but once you get the colors on, it's pretty easy to understand what's going on. I forgot to mention too before I started drawing, the undo button is this arrow up here. You can go like forward and back, just so you know. So what that is, that undid it so that this came out of the garbage can, but I want it to go put away, so I'll click that again. So now we have basically our simple mock-up on one layer. I find it's easier if you double click this and actually name it the line art, and then you're not going to get confused if you're new to layers as to what this is. Layer 1's actually your background, so you just kind of leave that alone anyways. But this is your essential line art. So now we have to go and fill in with cool colors, and knowing, if anyone knows me, which I guess none of you guys do, but I absolutely love Art Gallery fabrics. So I already brought up Funky Monkey Fabrics, which I love buying from them just because of their vast selection of Art Gallery knits. I absolutely adore them. So I'm just going to go find one, like a popular one, for example, would be one that I'll show the colors stand out. I'll use the Mustard Knits in the bucks. So I'm going to copy this image. So this is as if I want to make a mock-up for like a customer or something. I'll create a new image, or not a new image, a new layer. So click on the paper. So we got layer 4. Double click, and you want to actually label it fabric preview. Okay, so this is our fabric layer. Just go to edit and paste that in. Okay, so the bucks are a little bit small. When you do resize things, the scale might be slightly off, which is, you just need to let them know that from your experience of sewing, whether the buck heads are going to be a little smaller or larger depending on size. So just go to select and transform. And you're just going to drag it again and make it larger. Like, it's not going to be perfect, of course, but drag it out a little bit and hit enter. So now you're wondering, like, oh no, it's overlapping the line art. That's okay. I'll show you what else to do here in just a second. I see that when I did copy and paste it, it made a new layer. So I'm just going to merge this layer down. Okay, so it's going to put layer 5 onto the fabric preview layer. So you're just going to use this little button right here with the arrow, and that merged it down. So now this is now in my fabric preview layer, so just so I don't get confused. So if you want to make it so that these bucks are only seen and get rid of all the excess, there's a neat little magic wand tool which I love. So I'll show you what that is. So you're going to take and hide this layer, highlight your line art layer, so make sure it's blue. Go find this little arrow, this little, I guess it's a wand, not an arrow, this little wand fella. And you're going to click outside of your MAC Saloons. And you're also going to hold Shift and then click on the bum circle, the waistband, and both legs. Okay? Click on your fabric preview layer. I'm about to blow your mind here. Make it so you can see it. And go to Edit, Cut, Select, Deselect. Oh my gosh, right? I know. It's like magic. So then you can go up and say I want to pair it with a navy, just because everyone knows mustards and navies go well together. You can play with your little spinner and find the navy color. Find your little fill bucket. This is like a paint bucket. Click it. And then you can just fill stuff in. And that gives you an example image of what your mock-ups will look like. Okay? So if you've got this far, that's amazing. You've already basically completed your mock-up. If you're wondering how to save things so you don't have excess, see how there's more paper here over here? All you have to do is crop the image. So I'm going to take this little it's kind of like a dashed square line, and I'm just going to draw around it and go to Edit, Crop. So there's your final image that you can actually save. And if you do want to save it, all you got to do is go to File, Save As. Now here's a little trick here. Sorry, whoops, I stepped on a dog toy. You can either save it as a FireAlpaca file, which means you can open it back up and the layers will always be there, okay? So it means you can go back and you can reuse the line art, and then you can delete the fabric preview that we have over here, and then you can make a new fabric preview and do exactly what we just did with adding a new layer and just popping the new fabric previews in. So I would suggest saving a FireAlpaca version, because then you can go back and open it and all your layers are automatically there. If you want to save it to put it on your web page or as your own little mock-up image, you should have to save it as a PNG. And I suggest using a PNG because if you use a JPEG, it decreases the quality, and a PSD, like a Photoshop file, that will also make it so that it's a layered file program as well, but usually that's for people that have a Photoshop-like program, or if you're selling line art or things, then you can actually take and make it a PSD file, and it'll be universal and open up in all different programs, so as long as they handle layers. So there's that little tutorial for you. So I'm not going to save this just because I already have one already made, but I do want to show you what a more professional program will do, because if you zoom in on this, you can see that the line art is all consistently one layer here, or one width, and it's okay, and it's perfect for people that aren't picky like me, but I'm a little nitpicky, so I'll show you what my other program does that I really like, and you'll be able to see the difference, I imagine here. Where did you go? Oh, you're here. So this is under my Clip Studio Paint program. We get to see Kion again, just because he's cute. But if I go over here, I actually traced one of my own stay-on booties that I took a picture of, and it really makes a nicer image. You can see the quality detail is increased with it, and you can see how I've made some lines thicker and some thinner, you know. These lines here are thinner, so it really makes the image overall stand out. Again, it's Art Gallery fabric that I put in there, and I'm assuming that I would use Coral Minky in here, and then some Coral Cam Snaps. Again, I use the grippy fabric, the white dotted grippy fabric for the bottom of my shoes, so that's there. Another thing with this program is you can add little seams, because when I go to the similar type of draw tool that was in FireAlpaca, you can see that you can go to brush shape and you've got all these different shapes. So I often use the dashed line if I want to create, let me see here, if I want to create seams, and you can make it smaller or larger. I find that's also a little bit more professional with that. And other than that, you can kind of see where this evolved from. You can have shading as well to make it look more 3D if you're presenting it to your customers. But originally, all I did was trace a booty that I had already previously made. Okay, so it's just as simple as that. A lot of people get really overwhelmed with digital art, and it can be very overwhelming, but hopefully this has kind of helped you a little bit to see what you can do. Even if you don't have a tablet or you're using a mouse, it'll still work, okay? You don't need too much of fancy programs. That's why I go with Clip Studio Paint. It's not expensive at all compared to Photoshop, which I find is an outrageous amount of money, and it's very confusing. But that is there for you, so you can just kind of see how that evolved. I did my fabric layer here, where I used the art gallery and then a shading layer to add a little bit of dimension. My liner, and I actually colored my liner. Like you can see, there it is, black and white, or black and white, well, black in the color. Well, I actually ended up, I colored it a little bit with this almost an off brown color, just to help it stand out, and I did some highlights on the buttons to make them look more realistic. So that's kind of how you can evolve your drawing skills if you are interested, but I would suggest starting out with Fire Alpaca, and if anyone is interested, I would love to give another tutorial on Clip Studio Paint. It's one of my favorite programs that I've ever purchased, so that's just kind of where I'm at. I do a lot of digital art, and you can see that you can make all these different mock-ups. Like these are from Whimsy Baby. All these deer concepts that I made, I posted in their group there on one of her images, just because I want to make my own adult hoodie with some of her reports possibly, but you can see that all your selections here, and it really helps you understand what the final product is going to look like if you were to purchase said fabric. Now for my Jessie hoodie, I actually took this young lady here. She's a beautiful model, and I actually just traced it same as I would if I had been doing those Maxaloons. And I basically traced this all out and added drawstrings, and that's where my Jessie hoodie mock-up came from, was actually from this beautiful model here, who I think is modeling the Jessie very well, and I love her overall body shape that she took on the Jessie that she made. So that's just something that you can use, and the Jessie hoodie is a German pattern from Koemi, and I think it's an amazing pattern. I love it. And if you're interested in wanting to know, they did do a sew long under backstitch fabrics, so I found it was easier for me to understand as I don't speak any German. But that's really it for my tutorial today. If I did go a little bit too fast, you can go back and rewind and watch again, just because I do tend to speak a little bit fast, and I am almost running short on time. I have to go in for a night shift soon. So I guess that's it for my tutorial, and if you guys want me to make more tutorials in the future, just ask me, let me know. If you have any questions about any of the programs that we went and worked our way through, that would be okay too, because then I can make more tutorials if you need. But that's it, so I can't wait to see what you guys make. If you could post in the comments, that would be amazing, and I can see what you chose to actually make as your mock-up. Thanks for watching, and I guess let's see if I make another tutorial or not. See you guys later.